No Game, No Life, Volume 6, Chapter 3, Part 1. 1 plus 1 equals Deathless. A cavern far removed from the new village indicated on the map given to Koran. In this ramshackle hideout, those who'd held the reins of the evacuation to the very end, supposedly giving their lives, 179 ghosts, including Riku and Shui, surrounded by a round table. Looking them over one by one, Riku, the head of these ghosts, slowly declared, "We've done waiting for the war to end someday, for a future that will never come." Before the stupefied assemblage, Riku continued his speech, which grew increasingly impassioned. "Are we going to spend our lives scampering to survive in this shit world, praying for the war to end? Praying to whom?" As if vomiting out all the things he'd always wanted to say, but never could. "Those destroyers who call themselves gods, the asses in the heavens who can't stop them, enduring the shithole of a world. And then? What do we do then?" Brandishing his hand furiously, Riku howled as if pounding out his feelings. "I understand that the bastards are fighting for the throne of the one true God. But no matter who ekes out some bullshit victory among these bloodthirsty pricks, can we expect we'll be any better off than the shit we're in right now? Huh?" Then Riku lowered his voice precipitously and announced in a voice devoid of temperance, "It's time we admitted it. In this world, hope exists, not." They'd all sensed it, but the fact that admitting it would break their hearts made the ghosts hang their heads. As their faces grew pensive, he resolved himself. "So, all we can do is create it with our own hands." At Riku's powerful assertion, their gazes lifted. "There's one chance. A truly warped in the brain, questionably sane, common sense defying fool's venture." It was a seat-of-the-pants plan, at which he could only smirk. "We are ghosts, noted and noticed by no one." Riku looked at the girl standing beside him. "We are ghosts, but unseen we carry the will of those who came before us." At the red eyes that told him they still could. "That is the proof of our existence, that the world still exists." Riku once more steeled his resolve and tightened his expression. "Let us cast aside our pretense of wisdom. We humans are fools." And he said it. "Therefore, we shall fight." They would fight, not run, but fight. 177 gazes locked on Riku, who had undeniably made this assertion, and he smiled thinly. "Yes, we shall fight. Every enemy looming over us, no matter who they are, by our own power. That is, our foolishness, deceiving all, outstripping all like ghosts, like the weak. We'll despise every kind of plot, with no regard for shame or reputation, fanned by cowardice, extolled as base, celebrated as the lowest of the low. And then, And that's how we'll win. Yes, they could lay claim to one and only one victory. A victory built of endless defeats, piled one atop another, converted into meaningful losses and cancelled out. In the silence that followed, everyone, including Riku, pictured them. The opponents Riku said they'd face. Those things that had countless times consigned people, whole civilizations, to nothingness. Those things that on a whim could turn mountains into craters, sea into land, shatter the very planet. Titters pervaded the room. Everyone was so shocked, they couldn't help but laugh. And Riku laughed too. Yes, we shall challenge them and emerge victorious. It's so foolish, so preposterous you can only laugh, right? Indeed, how could one help but laugh? And that is the proof we are human, the proof of our folly, the final culmination of our existence. With these words, Riku surveyed the faces of 177 and assured them, the conclusion of the Great War, that is the victory we shall claim. The eternal war among the gods. They would end it, as mere humans. Hearing Riku's assertion, the 177, no, even Shui beside him, widened their eyes. Well, as for the conditions for victory, even looking at it generously, they're tough enough to make you dizzy, but Riku faced them with the smile of a child who successfully pulled off a prank, and remembered. When he was a child, he thought the world simpler, that there was no contest you couldn't win, that hard work would be rewarded, that anything was possible. What he believed as a child, still foolish and ignorant, seeing the world through cloudless eyes. This world, all along, it's just been a simple game. All along, it wasn't wrong. It's just been the gods enjoying a game for the Suniaster, playing Veil Tudo as they like. Riku thought, it is simple, isn't it? That being the case, all we have to do is create the rules we want to play by. With that, Riku fiddled with the chess piece in his hand and turned to Shui. The ex machina had said she wanted to know the secret Riku's heart revealed. Then here is your answer, Riku thought, and seeing Shui nod, he grinned boldly and laid out his rules. 1. No one may kill. The premise, that to kill another was to die oneself. The heart of it, he didn't want to kill anyone. 2. No one may die. The premise, that to let another die was to die oneself. The heart of it, he didn't want to let anyone die. 3. No one must know. The premise, that discovery meant death. 4. All means are fair. The heart of it wasn't cheating if you didn't get caught. 5. We don't give a shit for their rules. The premise that they were doomed on an even playing field. The heart of it? A fight to the death is for dumb shits. 6. Any act that deviates from the above shall constitute loss. The premise that inconsistent rules were meaningless. The heart of it? Any victory violating these rules was meaningless. So Riku would play by his own rules. His heart having dictated the terms, Riku once more surveyed the 177 gathered around the table. We are ghosts. We won't kill anyone, not other races, not the old day. No one will know we exist. We will simply lead the front by the nose to end this war. Emotional rules, tantamount to a child's tantrum. But at the same time, if mere humans were to end the Great War, there was no other way. It hardly bears mentioning, but if we fail, we will be wiped out. Our backup plan? Well, it probably doesn't exist. Hey, some talking monkeys are directing the course of war. If they notice, we're dead. So basically, Riku summed it up. Win or lose. All or nothing. When our chips are in, it will be too late to back out. Then Riku showed a glimpse of his true self. No one there had seen before. Our enemy is the gods, those forces that scorch heaven and earth, those manifestations of despair. Our odds are infinitesimal, since doing everything in secret is one of the conditions for victory. Even if we win, there won't be any memories or records, and there won't be any songs about our exploits. We're ghosts, and ghosts don't sing. Still, if by some stroke of luck, the impulse to write off an insane world as a game and take it on, the huge smile stretched across his face. If somehow we do manage to succeed in this game, if we win, served as affirmation. Don't you think we'll be able to brag to ourselves that we led the most awesome lives before we die? And so, that's the game. Stay only if you want to play. Having put it all out there, Riku closed his eyes and waited for them to leave. Silently, he chuckled. Fools hardy enough to play this game would be hard to come by, he thought. The people Riku had selected, without exception, were possessed of superior intellect and skill, having faced death any number of times and survived just as often. From the perspective of other races, they were mere dirt and dust, unworthy of touching. But among the dirt and dust, these motes stood above an ability. And that very fact was what made Riku laugh inwardly. Surely none would stay. It was insane. One fool was enough. That was that. It couldn't be helped. In the worst case, he and Shui would go it alone. Show them all. It would mean the difference of odds beyond the void and odds past the quiet reaches of nirvana. To be completely honest, he could hardly think of any strategies he and Shui could pull off by themselves. But still, Kept company by these thoughts, Riku counted out a full 10 minutes and opened his eyes. Let me be honest here, alright? Surrounded by the 177 faces. In other words, there had been no deserters. All looking perplexed and seemingly wondering. Just how long are you going to keep your eyes closed? Riku couldn't help but remark. I thought you guys were a little smarter than that. Riku's 177 ghosts chuckled at this, and each said their piece. Come on, General. Don't misread the first move. How are we going to win at this rate?
Riku, you think anyone with any brains would still be living in this world?
Questionably sane. What do you think could be less sane than the world we live in? The wise choose death over this world. The wiser would choose not to be born. Look at us, the ones who survived to be here. Riku, we're the ones you chose, you little bastard. That's just how it is. Everyone laughed and nodded.
Doesn't that make us the appointed representatives of the fools?
Riku grinned and laughed. Yeah, it was exactly as they said. Humans were foolish. Because they were foolish, they honed their wit and wisdom so as not to be done in by their foolishness. They'd survived this long. In a world not worth living in, they'd survived despite it. The ones who'd staked all their wit, wisdom, and artifice to accomplish it. If not the proud fools, the great weak, what would you call them? We were born to this world with no purpose.
We survived eating dirt for nothing.
But now we'll die significant and awesome. What more could we ask for? Is there any greater freedom, boss?
In your hands, we'll strike a stunning pose to the end. We're ready to live. Tell us how, General.
Riku lowered his face, as if scoffing from his very core, but... Every one of you guys is a crazy son of a bitch. It's good to know. So... Muttering sincerely, he spread out the map. For 5 years, no, even longer, they'd revisited it so humanity could survive. The game board. Woven of countless corpses, the game board fell under the scrutiny of 179 ghosts, including Riku and Shui, and Riku prepared to unfold his concrete plans. Come, let the game begin.
Asciante!
They all answered in unison with the usual response. Riku corrected them. That word is banned from now on. Our moves won't be dictated by convention, but by the rules to which we have assented. And so, yes, it's Ascent. Thus began the quiet maneuverings of those who did not exist. Bereft of a future, of hope, despairing even of despair, they'd finally grown tired of being fed up, waiting no longer, but seeking. The ghost ship of 179 set sail. Riku, I really don't understand. The heart, after all. Shui muttered this after the meeting while playing a card game with Riku at the entrance to their hideout. Shui had seen it. Everyone in that room had touched Riku's heart and resonated with it. All but one. Her. Shui looked down. Her isolating inability to understand grieving her fiercely, she continued. The probabilities of success of your plans are all less than 1%. Not to mention the probability that they would all survive, which was logically equivalent to Look, Shui. Riku cut her thoughts short. You're talking about probability. Is this pretty much it? Lacking the mathematical prowess of an ex machina, Riku interpreted Shui's attitude with his own spin and asked, You roll a die, and the probability of a 6 is 1 in 6. You roll it 2 times in a row, and the probability goes from 1 in 6 to 1 in 36. Percentages are beyond me, but that's pretty much how you're figuring it. Yes. So... Shui was certain she'd never underestimated Riku. Unable to hide her surprise at his ability to unpack Ex Machina's extrapolations so easily, she tried to explain the probability of... Then let me teach you something useful. The way you're calculating that is wrong. She froze. When you roll a die, the probability of a 6 is 1 in 6. But that methodology doesn't apply in this game. The reason being, Riku chuckled as he shuffled the cards. If it's 6, we win, and if it's not, we lose. So, it's 1 in 2. That was absurd. But it was accurate that perspective and conditions were important factors in probability. All or nothing. Calculating it from Riku's point of view, even this absurdity was logically consistent. An ex machina, Shui of all ex machinas, being out-reasoned by a human and by emotions. While Shui's thoughts tripped at the shock of it, Riku went on. And here's your second mistake. If a die can come up 6 once, then it can come up 6 10,000 times in a row. So, I definitely think your calculation is wrong. No. Accounting for variables. If you roll it 10,000 times, the distribution error converges. Strictly speaking, the probability that a die would come up 6 was not 1 in 6. There were many variables, but the more that trials were undergone, the more the probability would converge, making it, on the contrary, easier to calculate, which would make the result just as. This was Shui's argument, but Riku grinned broadly. Can you account for everything? Even what you don't know and have no way of predicting? For example. Yes, for example, Riku thought. Even if we slip in a die that only comes up 6? She couldn't. At least, not the first time. But if it continued, she would detect an abnormality and identify the cause of the error. Having thought this far, Shui froze. At last, Riku's words and strategy came together for her. No one must know. No one must even notice. what this actually meant, what he planned. Deliberate manipulation of the variables, inconspicuous, within the range of error. They would keep them predictable. Deliberate variables. There could be no greater impediment to mathematical calculation. Riku nodded, seeing that she'd caught on. This is what you call cheating. Fun, huh? Even so, she still couldn't fully grasp it. Probability theory wouldn't explain this game. That much she'd understood. But be that as it may, how can you treat the lowest probability outcome as the expected value? Chui posed her question, her gaze boring into Riku, who paused to consider it. He could say anything, like, because we can't keep going unless we have faith. Like, because we don't need any evidence to believe to have hope. But Riku decided that those weren't the kinds of answers Shui was looking for. Looking out their hideout at a world transforming into a planet of death, Riku gave his reply. Shui, the probability of human having survived in this world. What's the percentage? I have understood. Riku's ironic quip earned Shui's acknowledgement. Probability was a matter of statistics. Confronted by results with a miracle, all calculations went out the window. Then, paradoxically, if you perform miracles, probability theory itself becomes a false justification. Riku grinned and nodded at Shui's assessment. To put it your way, we're gonna operate as a computational singularity. All kinds of expectations, strategies, calculations. With just a little manipulation, we'll lay them all to waste and make them converge in the direction we want. Even as he said this, Riku thought, but it's impossible to predict everything. His own words came right back at him. He knew this. But if he could pull it off, no, that would be a divine feat, wouldn't it? Then all the more reason. Riku's smile deepened. Ain't it amusing? We're gonna take the doings of those pompous pricks in the heavens and bring them down with simple human handiwork. If everything works out, don't you think that'll be the sweetest irony? Listening to Riku's naive fantasy, watching those clear, dark eyes of his, Shui finally got it. This was it. What she'd seen the first time she'd met Riku. She could finally identify it conclusively. It was the source of the heart, the soul, that quality in which she had taken an illogical interest, which she had come to admire, that which one who was only what she was required to be, an adapter such as herself, lacked. That which inspired wishing, standing, struggling, and seeking what they wanted to be. Ideals. And anyway, fundamentally, probability is a bunch of empty theory, you know? She had indeed been refuted, but hearing it described as empty theory left Shui floundering. Here's the proof. Question. What's the probability I'll propose to you? Unable to grasp the purpose of the question, Shui ran some rough numbers. Cannot identify purpose of query. I estimate approximately 0. See, you were wrong. Marry me, Shui. Riku proffered a small ring to the stunned ex machina. There's no such thing as 0 in probability. No one can say we don't have any chance of winning this game, right? Shui looked up with eyes round as could be at Riku holding out the delicate ring and gave her answer. Cannot understand. Request denied.
Honestly, can't say I expected that, but sure. Leaving you guys on a cliffhanger.